Welcome to a crash course in emotions, part 2, delivered by JMS Creative Leadership Solutions. Remember we said that part of our brain called the limbic system houses primarily the responsibility for our emotions? The amygdala is responsible for feelings of anxiety and fear. And when this part of the brain is activated because of an intense, stressful experience, our brains will simultaneously turn off another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. And that helps us reason and think critically. Once intense emotions are in full effect, your rational mind is rendered useless. But remember, I said it's not because there is something wrong with you. It's because this is how your brain works. So I pose a question for you. Who is in charge? The thinker or the thought? To help you think through this, let's talk about the body-mind connection. The body, mind, and emotions are linked. In fact, they influence each other. So you have the mind and then the emotion. The mind, or thoughts, tells the brain what we think something means. The brain then triggers neurotransmitters and hormones to be released in our body, which cause us to feel the emotion we experience. We can change what we are thinking about, which will change our emotion. Let's keep talking. We have the emotion to the body. These emotions also cause physiological reactions in the body, such as slouching when we're sad, racing heart when we're angry, shaking when we're afraid, or smile when we are happy. Let's keep talking. The emotion to the mind. What we are feeling emotionally influences what we think because the mind moves in the direction of the emotion. If it feels good, or seeking to fix whatever is causing the emotion if it feels bad. Also, the emotional state we're experiencing influences what the mind focuses on, both what it notices in its environment and what it remembers. This is why when we're in a bad mood, we tend to remember and think about more and more things that feel similar. Let's keep talking. So now we have the body to the emotion. When we consciously choose to move our bodies in an empowered way, such as smiling or standing in a power pose, where your shoulders are back and your chin is up, it signals to the brain that we should be feeling empowered. And that triggers the release of feel-good chemicals. In the same way, smiling tells the brain we're happy, even if we're faking it. And so it makes us feel better. This is called facial feedback. So I ask again, who is in charge? The thinker or the thought? It's like asking what came first, the chicken or the egg. So let's talk about situational versus psychological fear. There is a difference between real fear and imagined fear. Real fear or situational fear is a natural fight or flight response to an immediate threat. If our bodies did not have this fear response, we would not have survived as a species. Imaginary fear or psychological fear is different because it is divorced from any concrete and true immediate danger. It is always fear of something that might happen. The problem is that while you can always cope with the present moment, you cannot cope with something that is only in your imagination. The brain does not know the difference between a real threat that is happening in the moment and an anticipated or imaginary threat. And so the body reacts to our imaginary fears just like it would if a saber-toothed tiger was chasing us. We might be stuck in traffic and be afraid of getting in trouble with our boss, but our heart races and we feel anxious, just as if our boss was right there in the car yelling at us. This is important because when the fear we're experiencing is imaginary, caused by our mind, we can take steps to de-escalate our anxiety and fear by learning techniques for changing our thinking. We will talk about these a little bit later, but let's continue on learning about our emotions. Conditioned emotions. As a toddler, every one of us learned how to respond to situations and surroundings in our world by observing our caretakers. The first time a child drops something that breaks and the adult or caretaker gets upset, the child learns they should be upset and start crying. This is called vicarious conditioning. We learn how we should react based on the observations of others. We also learn how to react and act based on how our caretakers or others react to our behaviors. We are reinforced either by positive responses and praise or negative responses and punishment. We learn what to do and what not to do based on how others respond to us. This is called classical conditioning. Our emotional reactions to life are highly conditioned. We continue to become conditioned as we grow up and become adults. We will continue to act in the ways we learn, even when no one is there to respond to us. We internalize these reactions and enforce them on ourselves, and we call this being conditioned. Without ever stopping to consider how we have been programmed, we live life on autopilot, continuing to live in according to our programming or conditioning. We can develop an awareness of our programming. We can question it and learn new ways of responding. If our emotional reactions to life can be learned, they can be unlearned and then relearned in healthier ways. Here are a few questions that can be used to identify emotional conditioning. How did your parents react to stress? Did they focus on positive or negatives? How did you get attention as a child? And what emotions helped you connect with your parents the most? What did you learn about sadness? How was it expressed? What did you learn to fear? How was the fear expressed? What did you learn about happiness? How was it expressed? What did you learn about anxiety? How was it expressed? How did people around you cope with stress and challenging situations? How did people connect to each other? Arguing, love, and affection, emotional disengagement. We can take steps to de-escalate our anxiety and fear by learning techniques for changing our thinking. Our perspective is the driving force of how we feel and how we react. By simply shifting our perspective, how we see a situation, we can change our emotional state and how we react to it. But we will discuss now 4 ways to shift your perspective. Reframing thoughts. In any situation, when we focus on what we appreciate or are grateful for or love about things, we then enjoy the situation. It's that simple. Gratitude is a powerful force for shifting our perspective because you cannot be in a state of gratitude and have negative emotions at the same time. Of course, there will always be disappointing situations in life. However, gratitude can help us shift it. The next time you are feeling frustrated, disappointed, angry, sad, or anxious about a situation, challenge yourself to find something about it to appreciate. Make a list of everything good about it. Doing so can help shift your mood about it. If you cannot think of anything to be grateful for, try comparing it to the worst case scenario. Think about it in ways it could have been or be worse, and then feel grateful that it isn't that bad. When you realize that it could have been worse, it can help put things into perspective. Rationalizing. This is something we do naturally since our brain is always trying to identify the meaning of what happens to us. We need a rational explanation, a reason, or an excuse. When it doesn't know for sure, the brain makes assumptions. So for example, the rationale can be, he did this to me because he doesn't love me, or I didn't get the job because I'm not worthy. But by rationalizing intentionally, you can direct your mind to select a positive rationalization. When something bad happens, if you rationalize that it happened for a reason, you will find meaning and purpose in the experience. So next time you get into a challenging situation, try a new way of rationalizing why it happened with statements such as, "This is a life lesson. I wonder what I will learn from this. This must be what I need in order to help me grow and develop and be able to reach my dreams. Learning from this will help me help others in the long run. Maybe he or she reacted that way because he or she is going through something challenging in his or her life." Cognitive reappraisal. Another effective strategy for changing our perspective and strengthening the part of our brain that is responsible for emotional resilience. It's through cognitive reappraisal training. Our mind tends to over-exaggerate what something means and the impact that it can have on us. When you become aware that you are exaggerating the situation and call our brain out on it, you are actually directly engaging your prefrontal lobe, the reasoning center, and tell it to tell your amygdala, the emotional center, to calm down. The more you do this, the more you work out the prefrontal cortex, and the better you will be able to manage emotions long term. Do not let your mind dictate how you should view the situation. Show curiosity and see how factual your perspective truly is. Will they really hate you? Will you really get fired? Contrasting emotions. In many situations, the feelings we're experiencing could be interpreted as two different contrasting emotions, and we can even feel like we're experiencing them at the same time. If we become aware of this, we can choose which emotion we want to experience. Many emotions have similar symptoms, so it is our perception that determines which emotion we believe we are experiencing, and that perception makes all the difference. For example, anger can also feel like confidence. Nostalgia can be interpreted as sadness or happiness, and excitement can be interpreted as fear. One of the best ways to choose to flip to the positive side of the emotion is to repeatedly tell yourself which emotion you want to experience so that your brain knows what it should be looking for. For example, if you're experiencing something exciting, but you find yourself feeling more afraid, tell yourself, "I am excited. I am excited," and repeat it as many times as you have to until the brain believes you. The truth is that the entire range of emotions is completely normal. There's been a lot of focus in recent years on personal development and happiness, which is great. However, this movement has also given people the wrong idea about emotions. People mistakenly believe that they're supposed to be happy or feel good all the time. This is problematic because when these people experience the completely normal emotions that are part of life, such as fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, they judge themselves. They judge themselves for it or try to avoid these emotions. There are no good or bad emotions. Emotions give color to life. It's part of the human experience. It is also possible to overreact emotionally to situations. When learning emotional intelligence, we are not learning how to stop feeling negative emotions. We are learning how to better manage our responses to them. So, accept your emotions when they happen. If you allow them to be there without trying to avoid or deny them, they will pass through you like a wave. When you allow yourself to fully embrace how you feel, you can learn how to make emotions work for you and not against you. Thank you for listening to Crash Course in Emotions, Part 2, brought to you by JMS Creative Leadership Solutions.